From first generation college graduate to corporate leader in tech, he shattered ceilings that weren't designed to let him through. And then he walked away, not to slow down, but to lift others up with the lessons he had learned. Let's have ourselves a pocket sized pep talk and explore how his story of resilience and purpose can help you rise up, rewrite your narrative, and maybe unlock the power you already carry.
A Pocket Sized Pep Talk, the podcast that can help energize your business and your life with a quick, inspiring message. Now, here's your host, Rob Jollis.
Today's guest, Lasada Pippin, is an engineer turned motivational speaker and coach, inspiring professionals, students, and educators to turn obstacles into opportunities. His journey, shaped by challenge, reinvention, and grit, resonates with those seeking purpose and resilience in work, school, and life. Through practical, actionable takeaways, his mission is to inspire audiences to think bigger, lead better, and climb higher. He's also the author of It's Just Not Common Sense. He's warmed up and he's ready to go. Happy to have you with us. So welcome to the show, Lasada.
Rob, that was beautiful, man. Thank you for having me, man. I'm excited to be here, excited to have this conversation with you. Ready to rock and roll.
Good. Yeah, well, I put a lot into that opening for you. I was hoping you could, when I talk to a motivational speaker, I can't mumble my words. I got to get them going. So I think you and I are going to have an energy battle. We'll see who ends up on top at the end.
See who ends up on top at the end. I love it. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's dive in. And with you, I want to start with how an engineer does a 180 and becomes a motivational speaker and coach. I'm going to go out on a limb and guess you didn't find this profession. It found you. How?
That's a great way to put it, actually. If I had to name one word or just a couple of words, the immediate words that come to mind is the word love, purpose, and obsession. Those three words is how I made the shift from engineering over into the motivational speaking space. That's how I would sum it all up. And so I was called by love, I was called by purpose, I was called by obsession, and so I had to do it. And that's why I made the shift.
Was there a moment, in other words, I can think of an exact moment when I left Xerox, for instance, and said,
okay,
I'm going to take a shot at this thing. I mean, it was an actual event where I went, if ever I was waiting for an apple to hit me in the head and fall out of a tree, I think this is it. Was there a moment where you went, this is the time?
It was. That was a pretty precise moment in terms of my career shift. My contract was ending. And so I knew that ahead of time because I was contracting on the last 2 years or so of my career, and my contract was ending. And so that brought me to a decision-making point. I said, I can renew the contract. I had the option of doing that, or I can go after what I really want. I can pursue what I believe is my purpose, my gift, and my calling. I had to make a choice. And it was that precise moment to where I said, I'm going after it. If I don't leave now, if I don't make the shift now, I don't know if there will be another opportune time like this to make the shift. And so that was a precise moment for me.
Yeah. I have the same mantra. It was a little bit different, but I sort of said to myself, it's almost like you and I, we had an itch we had to scratch. And if we don't do it now, one of these days we're going to wake up and go, I wonder if I could have done it. So for me, I actually felt somewhat energized thinking, I'm going to scratch this itch. And if it doesn't work out, I'll be, for you, I'm going to put your words to it. I'll be an engineer and I'll be a happy engineer, but I don't want to be a guy who never took a shot at it. I'll answer the question. And if I got to go if I got to go work for Xerox again and sell copiers, I'll sell copiers, but I got to scratch this itch. And like most entrepreneurs, my only regret was, I wish I'd done it a little bit sooner.
Exactly. That's the exact mindset. And you're hitting it right on the head because I always tell people, once I get to the end, Rob, once it's over for me, I don't want any questions. I don't want to question, what if I would have did this? Or how great could I have been if I would have pursued this? What if I would have took the risk? What if I would have gambled? And I don't want those questions. I want to live life maxed out, and I want to live it to my full potential. And so I don't want to get to the end asking questions of regret and coulda, woulda, shoulda. I don't want that. And so, yeah.
When I teach people sales, And and I can climb in with doctors and nurses and lawyers and, financial institutions. And I look at them all and I go, your clients all have the same objection. All of you.
Yeah.
They go, how can you be so sure? And I was like, pretty sure it's fear of change.
Yeah.
That's what kind
Yeah.
of creeps into a lot of us. And I think one of the kindest things you can do for yourself, and you did it, and for others, Lasada, and I know you're working with others, is help them pass that fear of change. It's one of the
That's
kindest
right.
things we can do.
Yep, that's absolutely correct. Yep. And for me, I didn't have a choice. I mean, growing up in the hood and, growing up with very little resources and so forth, what else was there to fear? You know what I mean? And like, it's like, it can't be more frightful than some of the days I've had, it can't be more fearful than that. So I've learned to embrace fear, Rob. I
Yeah.
really do. Like, I realized that there were times to where fear was not going to leave.
Yeah.
So I had to learn how to coexist with the fear. Fear
Yeah.
and faith, they coexist for me. And so that was my thing. I said, I'm just gonna embrace it and coexist with the fear and get comfortable with fear and still do it anyway. So that was my mentality.
It's really interesting, and I'm going to jump into this book, but I want to say one more thing. I think as a parent, I'm so careful to protect my kids that sometimes I think that I'm not really doing them, the service I'm trying to. And about 15 years ago, when they were 10, 11, 12, 13, right in that age, we had a fire. No one was hurt, no one was harmed.
Yeah.
But we were out for a year. So that gives you an idea of how big that fire was.
Yep.
And
Yep.
I think, in a sense, it was one of the greatest things that ever happened because, we got punched in the nose. And
Yeah.
it's scary getting punched in the nose. But once you've been punched once, the second punch, you're not quite as scared about. You wipe the
Right.
blood away. It's still standing. Let's keep moving. But
Yeah.
until you've been punched, you never know. And that's where the real fear lies. So, as ironic as this sounds, I always look at that fire as almost a blessing of being able to kind of mentor my kids through that punch in the nose. You know what I mean? That's life.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And yeah, we have to let them learn how to take the punches and get up on their own. And because sometimes they call me Papa Bear. I have two little kids, and so there are some times to where I'm trying to be more protective than probably what I should. And so just like you said, I need to allow that process of letting them figure out how to deal with the fires that they
Right.
will have in their life. And
Right.
multiple times they will have that. Yeah.
Right. I'm not, I always talk about this. It's this book I've never written. I don't think I can write it. It's too kind of weird. It's all over. But I've always been fond of this phrase, instinct versus logic. What we're
Mm.
talking about right now, Lasad, is very logical, but it's
Yeah.
not instinctive. The instinct
Yep.
is to shield people, to shield us away from anything. You didn't have a
Yep.
choice growing up. You weren't shielded.
Right.
Many people are. And in a sense, it weakens them.
Yep.
So it's that
Yep.
instinct to shield, and yet logic says we don't have to shield all that much because life's coming whether we like it or not.
Whether we like it or not, it is coming. And I always tell people that, even though we grew up tough, we grew up, in rough situations and, with little resources and so forth, I wouldn't trade it for nothing in the world
Right.
because that's what gave me the perseverance. That's what gave me the resilience. That's what gave me the fighter's mentality that I have today. Were those times of difficulty, were those times to where I had to go through the fire and come out on the other side of that fire. And
Right.
so I have appreciation for what we went through. And a lot of times you can't feel that appreciation when you're going through it.
Right.
But once it's over, once you're done, once that fire has created something in you that you couldn't have gotten no other way, you develop appreciation for it. And so that was my journey, was developing appreciation for it after the fact. Yeah.
Yeah. My dad told me one time, he said, I wouldn't wish a fire on anyone, but if I had one, I'd like one like yours. Because, notice how I started the story. No one was hurt. No one was harmed. You know what I
That's
mean?
right. Yep.
You got
Yep.
to
Yep.
start there. All right, let's
Yes,
jump into your
absolutely.
book a little bit. You built a book around 6 practical principles. I will dig
Yes.
into them maybe individually, but when did you realize that common sense alone wasn't enough and that you actually needed a framework around this?
Yeah, totally. So I realize that all knowledge is not common for everyone. All application is not common for everyone. That there are times to where you are trying to do something, trying to learn something, trying to figure something out, and you think that there is a common process, or at least you make the assumption that there is. And sometimes the learning is in the doing, is primarily in the doing. And so I realized that as I was doing certain things, I was like, you know what? I might have to write the story the way that I need to write it, not the way that someone else wrote it. And I can't compare apples for apples. I can't compare somebody else's journey with my journey. And I can't compare somebody else's trajectory with my trajectory either. And so that's not common. And so that's when I realized that, you know what? I'm going to have to write this story, write this journey the way that I see fit, the way that makes sense for me. And that may not be common to everyone else. And so that was a turning point for me, was realizing that, you know what, I'm going to have to be okay with creating and writing my own story. And so that's what I did.
Well, I applaud you for it because, quite frankly, that's what will give you longevity in this industry.
Yep.
You can be motivational. It's funny, my dad's no longer with us, but he used to say, "This is my boy, the motivational speaker," and I'd always go, I'd put my hands up like, hey, because I don't want to just be motivational. I got to have a
Right.
message.
Yep. Yep.
Listen, I'm sure I can already be talking to you. I can tell you're motivational. I can tell that you can inspire people, and I'll bet you can entertain them too. But at the end of the
Yep.
day, we got to work some sort of framework in there so that these
Yep.
people can repeat what we just taught them. So
Yep.
love the fact that and that's why we write books, right? I mean, so we can get these thoughts down into something that's as repeatable and predictable as we can make it. You know what I mean?
That's correct. Yep, absolutely. That you're nailed it right on the head. And I always tell people that there's a difference between talking, speaking, and communicating.
Yeah.
There are three different things. You know what I mean? Because a lot of people can talk, a lot of people can speak, a lot of people can motivate, as you said. But is there value in your message?
Right.
It's does your message transform other people? Does it transform listeners? Does it transform readers? Does it give them something very practical that they can implement in their life today if they needed it to? If they needed to, can they do that? And
Yeah.
that's what communicating and that's what a real message looks like, is giving people practical tools that they can apply right today. Because if they can't apply it, then it means nothing at the end of the day.
Exactly.
Yep.
I tell my clients, my report card won't be when I walk out the room today. I'll get tens
Right.
on that one. That's easy. My report card will be 4 months from now.
Yep. Yep.
Who's still using what we're working with? And that's why I tread lightly on the motivational side of, yeah, I appreciate it being said. But I don't want to be labeled like I think Chris Farley, in Saturday Night Live, his motivational speaker. Did
Yes.
you ever see those sketches with Chris
Yeah.
Farley?
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Okay, the
Classic.
classic
Yep.
motivational speaker, and
Yep.
yeah, and that's what I mean. No, that's just one component of what Lasada and Rob Jollis are trying to do here.
That's right.
Without it, we wouldn't be very good. But just leaning on it and nothing else, problem. All right,
Yes.
let me jump further into this book a little bit. One of your principles that I found interesting was about putting principles before profit. Okay,
Hmm.
I've got that
Hmm.
right. Now, I want to know how that idea played out for you in a career where you were in the tech side, where I'm guessing the norm is sort of profits. Profits are very important in that particular side. Well, I can have that wrong, but how did you that I don't disagree with you. It's almost that instinct versus logic again.
Hmm.
Logical, but is that instinctive? How did that come to you?
Yeah. So, in the tech industry, so I work with law firms, governments, and banks. Those were my three markets that I worked in as an engineer. And here's a little riddle for you, is that policies are many, principles are few. Policies often change, principles never do.
Hmm.
And I realized that when you're a person of principle, when you're a professional of principle, you're not going to cut corners. You're not going to try to take the shortcut, because whenever you take shortcuts, you end up being cut short. And so I realized that it was valuable for me to go through the process, to go through the headaches, to go through the heartaches, to go through the learning turbulence, to go through those things. There were some people that, that got further ahead of me faster because they took shortcuts, and those were people who operated on policy and not principle. And so I never wanted to be that guy. I didn't want to be that type of professional. I wanted to go through the process of learning. Think about a football player, or old school quarterbacks. When they got drafted in the old school, they didn't come in the NFL playing in year one. They were used to sit on the bench for 2 years, maybe even three, before they actually was inserted into the game. And so to me, that is principle. That is going through the process, that is understanding the course, that is understanding all of those things. And so I just saw it a different way. A lot of times I saw that there were some practices that were okay that I wasn't okay with. And so I wanted to be a person that operated out of principle because principle is it's like a foundation. It's gonna be your anchor. It's gonna what you hold dear to, it's gonna what you put in your core. And so I wanted to operate from that place and not just a place of policy.
Okay. All right, now I'm going to throw a riddle back at you. Okay.
Okay.
My riddle doesn't rhyme. My riddle goes like this. Okay. uh, you know, most people who lack integrity, they don't consciously believe they're lacking in integrity. They
Mhm,
justify what they're doing. Well,
mhm.
they stole from me, I'm stealing from them. They did this. It's convoluted, but it's, I think, how they sleep at night. So, what do you say to somebody who's trying to balance ambition with integrity, uh, but who is in their mind, if they took a lie detector test, they pass it. They have justified that lack of integrity. So it's almost an unconscious incompetency. They don't know that they don't know.
Yeah.
How do you work with somebody like that?
Yeah, and it is possible, Rob. So let me start on the positive side first. That it is possible. So here's the thing. Let's question the motivation.
Okay.
If we just question the motivation, and let's just break this word down for a second. I'm kind of a word nerd, Rob, and so I love words and looking into the etymology of words and so forth. And so when you look at the word motivation, you actually have two words there. The first part of the word is motive, and then the second part of the word is ation. We all know what a motive is. It's basically your reason. And then when you combine that with the word Asian, what actually means action, think about this. Reasons drive actions. That's what real motivation is. So if we question the motivation, we're questioning the reasons that led to the actions. And so we have to go backwards. We have to go back to the reason. What is the reason for this ambition, or what is the reason or the desire for certain practices that people have populated in their mind and they think is okay? Let's get back to the reason of it first. And then if the reason is not valid, then we can change the action. But we can't change the action if the reason is not changed first. And so I question the motivation. So if I can question the motivation, we can figure out how to change the course of action.
Yeah. You're speaking like a salesman now, by the way. I mean, a good
Oh
salesman.
gosh,
Well,
yeah.
no,
I
no,
had a few things
remember,
on sales. Few
well, now
things.
remember, got a lot of salespeople listening today, so Lasada loves salespeople. Trust me. Uh,
Yeah.
but when I say that, I mean a good salesperson, because a good salesperson is basically, you know, their intent is not to manipulate. Their intent
Yep.
is to get you
Yep.
past that fear of change. Sometimes we
Yep.
have to ask more difficult questions. So your response to me was basically, I can't tell them. I've got to lead them through my questions,
Hmm.
correct?
Hmm.
I got to make this their idea, really, at the
Yes.
end. Well, guess
Yes.
what? Welcome to the world of ethical salespeople,
There you
because
go.
we're not supposed to be selling you something you don't need. We've
Yep.
got something you need. You just don't think you need it enough right now. You will
That's right.
after you get your
Yep.
head handed to you.
Yeah.
So again, you can see this where the good salespeople are and good intentioned people are. And so your response to me actually sounded very much like a salesperson. A bad
Yeah.
salesperson, which you're not, would say,
Hmm.
I tell them this, I tell them that, I show them this,
Yes.
good. Oh, that's going to work well. Do you have any children yet?
Yeah, I have
Okay.
two. I'm still in the thick of things. You know what I
Okay.
mean?
So you know what I'm talking about. You want to
Of
tell them to
course.
clean their room? All right. It'll be twice as dirty tomorrow. Make it their
Yeah.
idea. We got that solved. But it won't be
Yes.
from you intimidating them or telling them what to do. So
Yep.
there
Yep.
you are. All right.
Yes.
All right. Let's jump
Absolutely.
into another principle with you. You stress overcoming invisible barriers. Can
Mhm.
you share a specific moment where you were confronted by one of these barriers, and maybe what shifted for you to kind of apply or at least come up with this principle?
Yeah, let me point to the perspective principle on that
Okay.
one.
Okay.
And that one says that the way you see a person is more important than that person sees themselves, or something along those lines. I'm kind of
Mhm.
paraphrasing here, Rob, but
Yep.
the way you see a person is more important than who that person really is for you because of how you see that person, right? And so I applied the perspective principle to myself in this case. And these were invisible barriers. This is where I'm driving with this, is that I had the invisible barrier of not believing in myself. And so I saw myself that way. And because I saw myself that way, it was more important than my capabilities. Of course. Can I do it? Yeah, absolutely. Can I crush here? Absolutely. Do I have what it takes? Absolutely. Do I have the skills? Absolutely. Am I purposeful? Am I passionate about what I wanted to do? Absolutely. I was all of those things, but the way that I saw myself. So my perspective of myself was more important or heavier than what I was actually capable of doing. And so that invisible barrier of not believing in yourself or not positively uplifting yourself with words or talking to yourself in a degrading way and not believing in yourself, that was something that was holding me back. That was something that allowed me to operate in fear. And so until I could switch the perspective, until I could see myself as a person who can offer high value, who can craft a charismatic, dynamic message, who can do all of those things, I had to shift the perspective first. And so that principle became paramount for me. And that's sort of how I wrote that principle because I'm like, wow, the way that you see something is more important than what it actually is. And so that's what applied to me in that area.
Right. And I'll tell you what resonates with me, which you just said. When you speak to yourself in a degrading way, in a sense,
Yeah.
um, I think I am with you on this one, Lasada. I think that is one of the scariest things that's out there. And you know why? Because it's sneaky. It
Hmm.
hides.
Yep.
And it pretends to be humorous. It says,
Yep.
hey, stupid, where's your pen?
Y-
You know,
exactly.
you
Yes.
don't know how to carry a pen. You got your, what are you, half a brain in there?
Yes. Yes.
And if I only said that once a year, it would be a good joke. Problem is, once it gets going, it doesn't stop. And if we
Yep.
say it enough, it begins to start tearing us down. So I'm really
Yeah.
glad that in your book and in what you're trying to do, that you're bringing that out because again, I think it's a blind spot for people. They think that we feel that we're just sort of kidding around with ourselves. There's nothing funny about degrading yourself.
Yeah.
It sticks.
It does. And it sticks for a long time. It's because a lot of times we can't turn inwardly and be like, oh, that's me. Like I am the enemy. I am the problem. I am the setback. I am the one who's not allowing this thing to go forward. And we have to change the perspective of that. And it has to be positive, it has to be uplifting, it has to be powerful. We just have to change the outlook. But that starts with a mental introspection of yourself.
Yeah. And maybe being a little bit clumsy and conscious of it for a little while. Uh,
Yep. Yep.
don't let it slip under the radar screen. Once is too much. We all do it, I do it, and I'm guy writes about it. Okay, but when I
Yeah.
do it, I
Yeah.
tend to catch it, and I don't smile, and I kind of okay, knock it off. Anybody can forget a pen. Let's keep
Yeah.
going
Yep.
because it's a slippery slope. Once you let it in, it gets louder and louder, and we don't want
Yeah.
to give it a voice. Okay, you got
Yep.
six principles if you think
Yes.
people struggle with. Um, which of, which of the six do you think? I know this is tough. It probably depend
Yeah.
on who I'm talking to, but is there one in particular? How about we do this? Let's
Hmm.
watch you dance a little bit. And by the way, folks, he's standing up so he can move. Okay.
Yes.
See if you can just hit those six. We got probably two or three already on the table. Give me those six. Bing, bing, bing. With a sentence or two so we know what they're standing for. And then tell me which one you think we struggle with the most. Okay.
Okay.
So, what are
Yep.
the six? Can you remember them?
Yeah. I think I can do this. So you have the trust principle,
Hmm.
and the highlight from the trust principle is that trust really is all about you. If you go to the center of the word,
Yeah.
trust, trust is more about you than it is about the other person. We have that one. We have the preference principle. That is just exercising the freedom of choice, the freedom of the way you do something, how you do it may look totally different from someone else who does it totally different than you, but that's totally okay. As long as we have the same objective, same goal, same end result, the how doesn't become as important. So that's what the preference principle is about. Then we have the perspective principle, which is what we already talked about. You know, the
Right,
way
right.
that you see a person or the way that you
Yep.
see yourself is more important than what it really is. We have that one also. We have the moment principle, the moment principle. And that one is really good because that one talks about the now. Is you want to be present in a moment. It's not about what you did in the past. It's not about your past laurels or accolades. It's not about the MBA that you got, a few years ago. It's not about tomorrow. It's all about right now. And the way that you build momentum is that you have to be in the moment first. So we have that one also. Um, so we got trust, we got preference, we got perspective, we got the moment principle.
I'll tell you the one that really kind of got to me. You give people a practical way to apply resilience. I like the resilience piece that you work with because I
Mhm.
work with in 15 years now. I volunteer with people who are in career transition and they are beaten up, Lasada. They're hurting. They've got their own setbacks. How do you apply? What would you say to somebody who, in terms of applying resilience, to somebody who's lost their job, who's gone through the interview gauntlet already? It's not so far. We haven't landed anything, and I've got one person in particular. I hope she's listening.
Yeah,
Who I work with, who's just gotten close, gotten close. That word resilience is tough for her right now.
yeah.
What do you
Mhm.
say to someone like that?
Very simple, Rob. And the application of this is it can be challenging, but at the same time, I do find it an easy way to implement. And two words is what I would say. Always push. And let me break that down. Here's what I mean by always push. Because push means something in the world of Lasada. It means something here. And what push means is that you persevere until success happens. So you always persevere until success happens. If
Got it.
you haven't won, it's not over. If you're
Right.
not winning, the game is not over yet. And
Right.
just because a chapter ends in a book, it doesn't mean that your story is over. And
Right.
so I would tell that person to always push. You persevere until success happens. You
Yeah.
keep shooting your shot.
Right.
Eventually, you will make it. You keep swinging. Eventually, you'll hit it.
Right.
Not all batters have the Hall of Fame batters in baseball. Their career average at batting is less than 35%, which
Right.
means they miss more than they hit, which means
Yeah.
they probably strike out or get out more than what they get on base. And so I say all of that to say to the person that we hope is listening is that continue to push, keep swinging, keep shooting, keep trying, keep getting back up, persevere until success happens. You will eventually be successful. And you never allow your situation to determine your destination. That's what I would say to that
Yeah.
person who is listening.
Yeah. And I'm hearing my ninth grade basketball coach, who because I was a guy who I was a point guard, and I could rebound, I could assist guy. I mean, I really enjoyed the game, loved it. But one of my faults was if I missed the first two or three shots, I didn't feel like shooting. I just I
Yeah,
pass up that shot. And
yeah,
as corny as it sounds, the first guy who said, Jollis, every time you miss, you're that much closer to the next one that's going in. You've got
that's
to
right.
keep shooting.
Yep,
That
yep,
really helped me. It was like, you know
yeah,
what? That is mathematically accurate. That is
yes,
a fact, not an opinion.
yep,
So
yep,
for me, that's one of the things that I'm trying to tell people is we just got closer. I know it hurts, um,
yeah,
but we just got closer.
yeah.
It's
And it can
tough.
be hard, it can be challenging. And so, because I grew up running track and playing basketball. And so that's how I learned it. And my son, he plays basketball now. He's only 7 years old, but I remember in particular, he had a game one day. He took 18 shots in the game, Rod. He missed 17. It was only the last shot that he made. They won the game, on the last shot. And what we talked about all the
He
way
hit the
home,
game winner after going
he,
over 16,
yeah, over 17. He
over
hit the
17.
game winner,
Wow.
and I remember being there and every time he would miss after about five shots, he would look over at me, kind of drop his head and shrug his shoulders like, I can't buy a shot, Dad. And the only thing I would do from the crowd is, hey, keep shooting, keep
Keep
shooting.
shooting. Yeah.
And he
Yeah.
made that last shot, and we never talked about his misses on the way home. The only thing we talked about was the one shot that he made.
Yeah.
And so that's important to be able to look at that. So keep pushing, my friend. Persevere until success happens.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I hope
Yeah,
she's listening. All
yeah.
right. We're coming down the home stretch. If a listener could only remember one of the six principles and start applying it today, which one would you want them to choose? And this is a little bit of a trick question. I'm going to give you some leeway because I'm going to half answer this and say, give me more about the person's personal situation. And I could probably pinpoint the principle. But generally speaking, if they were going to apply one tomorrow, which one
Ooh,
would you think you'd want them to put in action
that's
right away?
that's a tough one, but ooh, I'm between perspective and moment principle.
Let's do them both. Let me hear both sides of it.
Yeah, so in the perspective principle, that's just really changing your outlook, And so I would start there because if we can see things properly, we can approach things properly. If we have a skewed view, we're going to approach it wrong, and then we'll end up with the wrong results, and we're not going to be happy, and we don't want that. So the
Right.
perspective principle, the
Right.
way that you see things is more important than what it really is, and so I will start there. And then I would say for the moment principle is to live in the present moment. Don't worry about tomorrow. Don't worry about yesterday. Don't get too high on yesterday. Don't get too low on yesterday. Find a neutral balance to be right in the moment, to be present in this moment, and do everything that you can right now to influence your future. Because now is the best time frame that we have on earth. Right now. It's not yesterday, it's not tomorrow, it's right now. This is the best time frame that we have on earth. So I would combine those two together and say, live with that, be in the present of the moment right now,
Right.
and change the way you see things. Try to look at it from a glass half full versus a glass half empty.
Yeah. Yeah, and that takes practice.
It
I
does.
did an exercise for that group that I was talking about 200 job seekers. And again, this was a pretty down group. And I was putting up actual pieces of the Washington Post up on the screen, things that
Yeah.
weren't real nice. They were front page news. So, there weren't a whole lot of great news on any front page today, yesterday, it doesn't matter. Uh,
Yep.
Point being, the exercise was give me a positive. Tell me something positive of that particular story because
hmm
there is. Sometimes when there's
Yep.
something really horrific, well, it's on the radar screen now. We're talking about it. That's a
Yep.
positive. We weren't talking
Yep.
about it yesterday. Um,
Yep.
I'm not saying it's great. I'm saying we can condition the mind. You and I are definitely half full people. I got that out of
Yes.
you.
Yes.
I feel a kinship there. And but
Yep.
people look at us and they go, well, but I'm not, and so I guess that's my lot in life. No, it just takes a little. You can practice it, but you got to be
That's right.
willing to practice.
Yep. That's right. You know something very simple, Rob, to apply, and this is something that people can apply today, right now, and it's so easy, very easy. It's probably one of the easiest implementations I can share with people, and that is this: just smile.
Yeah,
Smiling changes your mood. It increases the great hormones and it decreases stress hormones. It doesn't cost you anything to smile. Just simply
yeah,
smile. Even if you don't feel like it, even if you don't want to, smiling can boost your energy. It can boost your mood and it can change the way that you see things just
yeah.
by simply smiling. And so that's a very easy implementation for people to do.
I
Just start
love that.
smiling
I
more.
love I love that one. I'm gonna bat one back to you. I'm playing like
Okay.
tennis. I'll give you one that
Yep.
I do, and then we'll wrap ourselves up. And
Okay.
it just happened yesterday. I had to explain it to a woman who seemed stunned almost. But I
Mhm.
got the 5 times a day. I'm asked, "How you doing? How you doing? How you doing?" And so I've taught myself, I guess, 30 years ago. It's almost obsessively. If you ask me how I'm doing, and try it, Lasada. Someday we'll meet. We'll have a cup of coffee. Try
Yeah.
it. Don't even mention. Just do it. Ask me how I'm doing, and like Pavlov's dog, I will answer, "I'm happy." And
Uh,
people tend to take a breath. And I'm doing it for two reasons. One, I'm usually happy, but
yeah.
two, I have to confront it if I'm not happy.
Yes.
I mean, we got to
Yes.
talk about it. I got to mentally think about it. I can't be moping around. And sometimes we don't know we're moping, but it's a
Yeah.
trigger that for me, and I try and get other people who, again, are looking for that half full. Let's start with every single time. It'll happen multiple times a day. Somebody else throws out that, how you doing? Look, I don't care if they're at the CVS, pharmacy. Tell them you're happy and see how they
Yeah.
react. See how you
Yeah.
react. That's
I
my
love that.
version of the smile.
Yeah. I love that. I think I'm gonna start implementing that.
There you
I'll
go.
combine that with the smile, and man, it's gonna be miraculous.
Yeah, well, I'm taking the smile, so we'll compare notes in a few months.
There
Listen,
you go. Yeah.
uh, you've been terrific. How do people get a hold of you, Lasada? I know you do coaching. I know you're speaking. How do they get a hold of you?
Yeah, very easy. LasadaPippen.com, easiest way to do it. All of my socials are just simply at Lasada Pippen.
Yeah, and we'll have them up on our site as well. Uh,
Awesome.
Look, terrific job. I'm jealous, folks. He's been standing the whole time, and I told him before we started.
Yes.
I used to stand. I stood for like 3 years, and then I sat down. But this guy has been bobbing and weaving the whole time, and I
Yes.
see
Yes.
why you're a speaker that's getting booked.
Yep.
Terrific job. Really a pleasure meeting you. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Yeah, awesome, Rob. Thank you for having me. True pleasure talking with you and having this conversation. Truly enjoyed it. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Me too. Well, we'll do it again as well as we can next time, everybody. Until then, stay safe.
Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed today's show, please rate and recommend it on iTunes, Outcast, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can also get more information on this show and Rob at jollis.com.